evaluating your courses, and we're going to specifically look at how to evaluate your course design using the Quality Matters rubric. With me today, I have Sue McDaniel, who is an instructional designer and an instructor with the CGHS program. And Sue is also one of ATSU's QM coordinators. So she knows QM pretty darn well. Also with me today is Quincy Conley, the director of the Teaching and Learning Center. And I also see where the rest of our team, Julie, Aaron, and Brenda, have joined us. I thank them for being here, and I thank all of you for being here. Last time on the seminar series, we had a fantastic conversation. I hope that you were here to witness it, because we discussed what course we sort of tried to learn who actually develops our evaluations, but more importantly, we discussed how we can use our own evaluations. And we looked at some of the issues with course evaluations, and there were plenty of them. We reviewed some of the best practices, and we explored when to offer them so that we can get the best results. You can watch that presentation or that discussion in the Teaching and Learning Center's YouTube channel if you'd like. And if you're there, subscribe to the channel and click the little bell for notifications. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to click the like button. I want to remind you that today's session is being recorded and it will be available soon on YouTube. And if you like what you hear today, please consider sharing with other like-minded souls. So in today's session, we're going to shift from evaluating our teaching and the presentation of our courses to evaluating our course design. The biggest difference between the two is that evaluation of course design does not specifically look at the content of the course or how you interact with the students, but rather it evaluates the architecture of the course in itself. So let me begin with this question. Why would you want to evaluate your course design? Go ahead and come off mute or post in the chat and share with why you think we should evaluate our course design. Susan Thomas, what do you think? I'm picking on you.
Oh boy. Well, I would say as an instructional designer myself and an adjunct that teaches as well, that course design is really important and evaluating it is important because that affects our students and their learning. And so for me, when I think about why would we want to evaluate course design, it's really to ensure that the learning outcomes are achieved, that our students are truly learning what we want them to learn, that we are teaching them what we say we're teaching them in the long run, and that the experience is effective as well as engaging.
Cool. Alan, did I see that you had your hand up?
Well, yes, I would strongly agree with Susan's remarks and also suggest there's alignment, as I learned in the course design course. And
Design
we're looking at,
right.
I can't recall the name of it, Quincy, but there you go. You might call it the course design course in the future. But anyway, there's an alignment between the learning goals and the outcomes of the course. So the outcomes, of course, would be well-informed, knowledgeable, and satisfied students. And so the instructional design is very important to connecting the learning objectives and goal through the assessments and then on to the ability of the student to use what we share with them in their real lives, their professional lives.
Right, right. I see that Rachel posted in the chat to ensure that we're meeting our learning objectives, which is one of the primary reasons why the QM rubric exists. I also want to point out just some other thoughts. Alignment is obviously a big thing with us, but it also, if we don't evaluate the course design, our students may actually appear at times to be doing busy work, and the course doesn't feel like it's doing them any good. Um, it'll look at student expectations for the course, and are we using the appropriate tools and materials? Those are all part of evaluating our course design. So if all you do is evaluate the foundational aspects of course design, your students will end up with a better learning experience. So today, after this session, you should walk away with four things. A clear picture of what Quality Matters is, their goal and what they do. A basic perspective of what the QM rubric is, how the QM rubric can help you evaluate your course design, and I'm going to pay attention specifically to alignment since that is obviously a big thing, and how you can get your very own copy of the QM rubric. We're going to be looking at how you can evaluate your course alignment through the lens of Quality Matters, no matter the modality of your course, in person, hybrid, online, whatever. So, one of the best tools available to us for evaluating course design is the QM rubric for higher education. Have you heard of QM? Have you heard of it, but you know nothing about it? Do you know it well? I know some here know it really well, but if you don't know it, let us know in the chat. If you've never heard of it, let us know because this might be a real introduction to something that can be beneficial to you. Or come off mute and share with us. Kelsey is not familiar with it. Rachel knows of it. Jessica's heard of it. Okay, so there's some familiarity of that it's out there. We just don't always know what it is or how we can use it at this point, right? So let's take a look at the history of Quality Matters because it's actually a very interesting history. At the time of its creation, online teaching was in its infancy, and students were beginning to look at their education differently. It was the turn of the century, okay, the 21st century, and we were on the cusp of a new era in education. Online learning was changing the educational landscape, especially in higher education. In 2003, QM started as a grant-funded project with the goal of improving quality of online courses across institutions. And this project was attempting to make sure a student enrolled in any online course at any institution would receive a quality learning experience. At the University of Maryland, which is now known as Maryland's online campus, a team of educators were observing students enrolling in online courses at other universities to complete their degree at Maryland. Not knowing the quality of those courses left a little concern. They didn't know what their students were getting at those other schools, and they wanted some reassurance that their students were getting the same quality of education. And this concern led to the grant proposal that eventually developed the first Quality Matters higher education rubric for online courses. The initial grant funded the development of a rubric designed specifically to look at the design of online courses from any institution. And over time, QM grew to a point to where it is now separated from the University of Maryland, and it is its own self-supporting nonprofit organization. In the summer of 2023, QM released the 7th edition of this rubric, which now includes standards for hybrid and synchronous online courses. You'll notice on the cover, if you're looking at the screen, you'll notice on the cover it says Standard for Course Design. It says nothing about presentation or course content. One of the services that QM offered, and it is the basis of QM, are peer reviews of courses. These course reviews are at the heart of what QM does to assure online courses from any institution is a quality course. So if you see a QM certified course logo, you know the design of that course meets rigorous standards that were developed and updated by a team of educators, and they have vast knowledge of learning design and experience. The QM and the rubric are focused on design, which makes this tool ideal for use when looking at your course design, not just online. We can look at it for any modality. And I'm going to let you know that there are over 1,500 worldwide institutions of higher education who subscribe to Quality Matters, and this includes ATSU. Each of those institutions have what's known as a QMC, or a QM coordinator. One of our QMCs is Sue McDaniel. Basically, you can look at her as a liaison between ATSU and QM. Here's the thing, Quality Matters is more than just a rubric. They offer courses and workshops, they offer webinars, they offer resources, and even an annual conference. I think just yesterday they had an online, or is that tomorrow? An online conference that's going on. So if you want to learn more about Quality Matters as an institution, reach out to Sue and see what you can learn about it. I'm sure she'd be more than willing to share.
I just put my email in the chat.
Thanks. So the question is, what is this rubric? And before I address that, let me ask you this. Do you use rubrics in your class? How do you use rubrics? Go ahead and unmute yourself and respond. Let's see how we use them.
I'm going to be brave and say that we use them for student guidance as well, not just for instructor guidance.
I think that's an excellent reason to use rubrics. How else do we use rubrics? Students understand what is expected of them. Exactly.
To be very transparent in how we are grading.
Yeah, transparency is good.
And Hal just chimed in with that. And so did Jessica.
I will also say that sometimes when you're designing a rubric for an assessment, you'll figure out whether or not you're actually grading what you want to grade in your assessment.
That's true. Or are you actually measuring what you think you want to measure?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you use rubrics in your courses, whether it's for an exam or a discussion or whatever, just keep in mind that the QM rubric works exactly the same way. It's bigger. Here's my copy of it. But it's the same as if you have a little 5 standard rubric for an assignment. The QM, it has a series of standards, and then it provides annotations outlining how a standard can be met. And there are multiple ways a standard can be met, and most of the annotations say, look for evidence of. It's not prescribing specifically how a standard is met. It's looking for, can you find the evidence of it meeting the standard? QM has 44 standards, and I know you may not be able to see the PowerPoint screen, but trust me, there are 44 standards there. And they range from the essential standards, which are worth 3 points, to the very important, which are 2 points, to the important, which is 1 point. And that totals up to 101 points. The standards range from the course overview to the learning objectives to accessibility and everything in between. But one thing you will never see in the rubric is a statement about how material should be presented or how you assess a student learning. And I would like to note, it also says down there that all essential standards have to be met for the course to be QM certified. The essential standards include all of the alignment standards. So I know Alan has taken the CDI course because he just told us, but has anyone else taken the Course Design Institute from the TLC or the ACDI that's going on now? I see 1, 2 hands. I see 3, 4. Excellent. If you have not taken the CDI or the ACDI, I highly recommend it because it will work. You'll work through your course, and we will look specifically at alignment and other aspects of good course design. So the QM rubric has 6 essential alignment standards, and this is the basis for a good course design, even in your in-person course. So let's look at each one a little bit closer. Standard 2.1 says the course level learning objectives describe outcomes that are measurable. The objectives need to be observable to a point where they are measured. And then right next to it is standard 2.2, which is the module level objectives are measurable and consistent with course level objectives. And each learning lesson or module has objectives that align with the course objectives and are observable to a point of being measurable. So why do you believe QM places importance on the objectives being measurable and consistent with each other? Anybody have any thoughts? I'm going to channel my inner Aaron and just sit here and listen to the silence for a while.
Or you could just pick on somebody again.
Accrediting bodies look at these alignments.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
We also have to guide the assessments that will be used.
It's true. Remember, these objectives have to be measurable. And that's going to play a big role in the next standard.
I would also
If you
say, oh, sorry, I
go
would
ahead.
also say that, say, program outcomes are the foundation that should guide what your course outcomes or your course outcomes are going to be. So those then you should align your assessments, need to really be in alignment with that so that you're meeting the correct expectations for what a student should be able to know or do as they leave the program.
Right, right. The connected between the module or lesson level objectives and the course objectives, if those don't connect, then your module or your lessons are out of alignment, out of whack. And that whole lesson is going to be wasted because your students are not going to understand why they're doing that work. So you need to connect the two. And that's why these two standards are at the bottom of the QM model for the learning objectives at the bottom down there. Standard 3.1 is in the architecture picture QM uses is assessments that measure the objectives. So if the objectives are to be met, we need to determine if the learners are actually meeting those objectives. Therefore, we need to measure them. So therefore, if your objectives are not measurable, we can't assess them. And these are your top and your bottom of your alignment structure. In between those, there's really not much of a gap. But if your instructional materials don't contribute to the objectives, it's going to seem like fluff, extra stuff that's not going to help the students get to where they need to go. If it does not align with the objectives, those instructional materials can probably be removed. And if you feel like they have to be there, then maybe your objectives need to be re-examined. So the rubric's looking at what material is presented to help them achieve the objective. They're not looking at what that material is. They're looking at, does it achieve the objective? They look at, in standard 5.1, do the activities help achieve the stated objectives? This is the active learning that you've probably heard of. Students learn by doing, and if our course is all reading and testing, then there's no doing. So I know in the world of QM and online learning, the biggest discussions revolve around, is that an activity or an assessment? So what can be considered an activity to help a student achieve the objectives? Come off mute and provide your suggestions.
I'll start with one, might be reading,
Okay,
like reading an article might be an activity in support of an assessment.
okay, that seems pretty simple, doesn't it? What other activities?
Working on a project.
The laboratory.
Yeah, what was it? Who was that? Alfredo, did you say something?
Yeah, I say something. Making procedures in the laboratory,
Okay,
the zinc clinic.
yeah. And working on a project?
Yes.
Perhaps a knowledge check, like if you're doing some type of just touch base to make sure you're on track.
Okay. Hal says review activities.
Going real basic, a lecture, a classroom lecture.
Is if the lecture is interactive, I can see that. If it's just listening, is that an activity that the student is doing? That sounds more like an instructional material point to me at that point. But if it's interactive, where they're doing a think, pair, share, or they're responding in some ways, then that's activity. So there's a lot of different activities that can happen in a course to help the students achieve the objectives. Do these activities need to be graded? I'm seeing some heads shake no.
Yes.
Yes. Why do they need to be graded?
To evaluate what kind of work they are doing, or they need to improve, or just to see the progress.
Okay. I can understand that.
I could see non-graded, but with feedback.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there a difference between grading and evaluation?
Oh, good question.
Yes.
What's that difference?
So evaluating is seeing where you are in that learning activity, and it's formative. When you finally get to that assessment and you grade it, then it's no longer formative. And I've lost my word. Begins with an S.
Summative.
There we go. It's summative feedback.
I got your back, homie.
There you go. Thank you. So, but I think one of the things we tend to skip over is formative assessment.
Yes, and I think what you'll find with the QM rubric is that's the point of looking at the activities, because that's where the formative feedback comes into play, more so than any other place in a course. I noticed that there's some good information in the chat also, some links to formative versus summative assessments. Um, Aaron also said participating in a discussion board. Um, in an online environment, a discussion board is great, but even in an in-person course, just participating in a discussion is is an activity as well. Nancy says asking students to analyze, compare, contrast learnings. Yes, all of that. Get the students to do something to where we can provide them formative feedback. That's what the QM rubric is looking for when it looks at the activities that help achieve the objectives. The last thing in the alignment part of the QM rubric are the tools used to support the learning objectives. And you may be thinking this standard is dedicated to online courses, but it's not. You use tools in your in-person courses all the time. So what is considered a tool and how does it support the objectives? Thoughts? There are no thoughts. Can I repeat the question? Um, how are tools um, used to support an objective? What are tools and how are they used to support the objective? Polling softwares is a good one.
I suppose it could be as simple as if I have asked a student to write a paper using Microsoft Word or some such software as that, that could be the technology tool that supports my overall objective.
Exactly. Digital portfolios? Sure. Social annotation? Demonstration videos? Tools that provide interactivity, a form, a survey, interactive course map, giving students the rubrics.
Even the LMS to a certain extent.
Yeah, yeah, the LMS or anything that we add on to the LMS. But in your in-person courses, also think about things like, is there a smartboard or just a whiteboard? Are there wheels on the chairs where students can move around the room? Those wheels are tools to help us meet the objectives. I know that's probably stretching it, but
Maybe
it is
not.
technology.
Julie just asked, does the tool have to be high tech?
No, the tool does not have to be high tech.
It can be a pencil and paper.
It could be. It could be. So if you can look at what tools are being used um, in the QM rubric and how it helps the students achieve the objective. So those are your 6 alignment standards in the QM rubric. And all of them will help the student achieve the objective. That's easy for me to say. I'm going to point out that Kelsey just put in the chat that labs, they use models and 3D software. By all means, those are tools. So if these standards are not met, your course is going to appear unorganized. It may be perceived as if you're asking students to do busy work. And this can and most often will result in student evaluations that come across as negative. It may not be your actions that cause poor course reviews from students. It may be rooted in the course design. So maybe we should explore a little more about using the rubric for your course. And since the rubric evaluates design, a good portion of this rubric can be used for courses that are not online. There are some standards that are unique to an online environment or a hybrid environment, and we can easily skip over them if we're not trying to get our in-person courses QM certified, because they're not going to. So let's look at this in a little more detail. From what I can tell, 38 of the 44 standards are not specific to an online course. And the standards will range from looking at providing information to the learner, such as where to get assistance if needed, to how students and instructors are expected to interact and what is expected of a student. They look at instructor availability and the method of contact, and so much more. And these standards can be used to evaluate any course design, from a lab to a clinical to a in-person to an online. The rubric looks at active learning. I mean, I went through it earlier, and this is where the learning activities are the center part of a lot of this rubric. And it looks at this to eliminate the busy work so that students understand why they're doing the activity. And this is where we give the formative feedback. It looks at alignment. If you've heard Quincy say alignment, 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 then you've heard about good course design. No matter how big or small the course is, if it's a graduate level medical course or if it's an elementary course, if it's university training or corporate training, if the alignment is off, the course is off. And we cover alignment in the CDI. So if you want to learn more, I believe there was information put in the chat about our next offering of the Course Design Institute, which will be happening this summer. The rubric also looks at your courses not as a prescriptive service, but as a reflective purpose. So it looks at review, not as a dictation of what should be. Yes, I'm sure we all use the rubric if we know of it when designing our online course, but that's the same reason that a student will look at a rubric before writing that paper. We're looking at what they're going to be graded on or what they're going to be evaluated. And we'd use that same thing. But the rubric from QM does not come into play until after the course has been offered at least 2 times. So it's a reflective tool, not a prescriptive tool. So how can you use the rubric to review your course? There's 2 basic methods of using the QM rubric. And the first one that I can think of is self-evaluation. Go through the rubric and examine the course yourself. This is more of a self-reflection process, but it can still be an effective evaluation. And I have found that professors who perform a self-evaluation will often miss elements that a second pair of eyes catch. In that case, you may want to consider a peer evaluation. Ask a colleague to use the rubric to examine your course. This is not them walking into your classroom and watching you teach. This is them looking at your course more objectively and asking them to look at your objectives, your material choices, your activities, the assessments, look at the syllabus, etc. If your course is an online or a hybrid course, you may have some more options available to you. QM does have a self-review tool that can help you go through the rubric and you look at your online course. And as a member of a QM university, you have the right to use that tool. QM also has, well, I should say this. The state of Missouri has a QM system. And within that system, we have several certified peer reviewers. I know that there are several peer reviewers right here in this course. I'm a peer reviewer, Sue McDaniel is, Susan Thomas is. So if possible, you can get your online course peer reviewed unofficially. And I think Sue might be sharing a little more about that in the next seminar series on March 5th. Or if not, she is now. Of course, you can also have your online course officially reviewed by QM, but that costs a little bit of money. QM also offers online courses that will help you review your course, such as the Improving Your Online course, where you are walked through the 22 essential standards and you finish with a plan to improve your online course. So those are several ways that you can use the rubric to evaluate your own course. How do you get a copy of this? Because ATSU is a QM school, you have the right to obtain a copy of the rubric. What you will get is probably a Google Doc version of the rubric. These nicely bound printed books, you've got to pay for, and they're not cheap. But I believe if you want a copy of the rubric, you can reach out to Sue McDaniel, or maybe she'll put a link to it in the chat. I don't know if she can do that yet. But I do want to caution you. The rubric is proprietary, and it belongs to Quality Matters, not to you, not to ATSU. The rubric is not to be shared outside of ATSU for any reason. So don't get a copy and send it to your friend at some other institution that is not a member. And if for some reason ATSU drops membership with QM, you are to stop using the rubric. Are we supposed to destroy the rubrics if we end up? It is proprietary, so it belongs to QM, not to us. So hopefully you've learned a little more about what Quality Matters is and a bit about their history. We have explored the bare bones basic of the rubric, primarily the alignment standards, and we've looked at how you can use the rubric to evaluate your own course. And we told you how to get a copy of the rubric. So at this point, that's all I really have. So if you have any questions, we can open it up and we will try and answer them. So what questions do you have?
I have a question, Jay, and
Mhm.
others that have used QM before. So, how I was introduced to this concept of QM a few years ago was that it was mostly used for online learning environments as opposed to other types of learning environments. Um, if others have this same notion, what would you say about being able to expand this into in person? What should we be on the lookout for? Can it be done? What support is out there that would help maybe some of us who teach in our online learning environment, maybe in a hybrid, or even at ATSU, it's not uncommon to be in a lab-based course in didactic clinical setting. What's your take on that?
I was wondering if Sue was going to respond. um, my take on it has always been this. The QM rubric has been specifically designed for online courses, but since it focuses on course design, it does not have to be for an online course. If you've got access to the rubric, you can't do an official QM review, but you can do unofficial reviews. Use it as a tool to look at your course design. And that works for labs, for clinicals. Not every standard is going to fit those environments, but but you know, if it doesn't fit, if the standard doesn't fit, then you just skip over it. But a lot of the same good quality course design tools are in this rubric. So look at it and use it for whatever environment you're at.
So I could kind of speak specifically to that. So the very first standard, the number 1.1, is instructions make clear how to get started and where to find various course components. So, where do the students find your syllabus? Where do they find, the lab? Do you have directions to the lab or to the classroom? Do they know what they need to have as far as textbook, things like that. All the things that they need to get started. Is it clear where they are? And if it's not, how can you make it clear? Maybe you have, in addition to your syllabus, you have hey, here's what you need to get started in the class document.
Mhm.
So something like that. And I saw Ellen had a question. I saw that
Yes.
hand up and then it went down. So please.
That's quite all right, Sue. I'm curious how the accrediting bodies, the assessment authorities, view this product. This sounds a little like perhaps Joint Commission accreditation in the healthcare field. You don't have to have it, but it's good to have it. So I'm just curious how the accrediting bodies that have authority, Dr. Altman and others, over assessment and how we train students and those kinds of things, view QM. Has it become important or okay to have, or is it a necessity?
I can speak to the HLC because one of our master reviewers here at the College of Graduate Health Studies is a master reviewer, and he's also an HLC reviewer. And he has told us multiple times that if he is on a site visit and the school says that they are following QM and they have QM certified courses, there are certain aspects of the HLC review that they don't worry about because they know that that's already being met. Now, I can't speak to that for accrediting bodies.
I would say too, Sue, when we met with the Nursing Accreditation Board, AACN, or was it CCNE?
CCNE.
CCNE, they also spoke very highly of Quality Matters. And so most accrediting bodies are at least aware of what Quality Matters stands for and the fact that it's backed by research, very vetted. So I think you'll find most accrediting bodies are in support of it to some extent.
Don, did you have something to add to that? And if you don't, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I think that what it does is I think most site visitors are aware if they're assigned to the distance education part of a review. And if you don't, I think you have a lot more explaining to do for them to understand how every student is getting the same minimum, meeting the same minimum competencies or whatever it might be. So if you have Quality Matters, it's no different than HLC looking at CODA or ARC-PA. When you have a discipline-specific accreditation, the exploration is not like it would be if you didn't. Okay, they just because they respect those structures, and not having it, I think, just raises a whole lot of questions, and the less questions from site visitors, the better.
Rachel, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, y'all have mentioned a couple times QM certified courses. What does that mean? Is that like the going through and getting official review, or what?
Yes, the process for a course to become QM certified is that the course is submitted to QM, and there is a 3-person team that will review the course. They'll go in, review the course, and one of those reviewers will be a subject matter expert within the topic. And then they each look at the course individually, compare it to the rubric out that, oh, I saw that two of them saw where this standard was met and one didn't, then that standard will be marked as met. And there's an 85% standard rating. The standard has to be met at an 85% level to be considered met. So you can have something there, but just barely, and it will not be met, which means that standard is not counted towards certification. When the course is certified by those reviewers, you get the right to display that little certificate, and they give it to you specifically. You can't just go out there and copy it and paste it. And then you can put that in your course, and that shows. Well, you can also put it in the course catalog too, if I'm not mistaken, based upon the institution. And then that shows that the course has been officially reviewed by QM and that it met QM standards. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to say, I think one of the things that we don't address and that we thought at CGHS when we started the QM process that we thought it would help was that, and on the website, you put this course as QM certified. That doesn't mean anything to a student.
Not
So
really.
we thought it would be a really good recruitment. And students don't know what that is. They don't understand any more than many faculty do, right?
Right.
So it wasn't so much as a recruitment tool as it was an internal, this is best practice. We want our folks to get a minimum competency, and this is the process we want to take. But you can't use it really as a recruitment tool because it's not widely known among students. So
Right. And unless your recruiters are well versed in what QM is and out there talking to potential students, I agree. Having it in a catalog or in recruitment material does not necessarily help, but it does to an adjunct instructor who's coming in to facilitate the course. It does to the students once they're in it and they start looking at the structures. And I can tell you, my daughter has taken so many online courses and she's come back to me and go, "Oh my God, you can't believe what they're doing or not doing." And I hear it from all over the place. And she's very frustrated with that. And so if you have a QM certified course, the students are not coming out going, "That was a horrible course. That was bad, a waste of money." They know that it's a decent course at the end.
And Jay, back to something you said earlier, you were talking about the 85% mark.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that as a peer reviewer who has done the review process for courses for other schools and for the school, I would say it's, you said as well, this is not Big Brother going through your course. It's not like somebody coming to watch you. The peer reviewers are not scary people. They are really there to provide you with suggested recommendations. You own your course. They're just there to say, hey, I didn't see where this was met, but here's something I might I might recommend this to you. You might look into this. This might be helpful. And so there's lots of helpful recommendations that come out of those peer reviews. So using that rubric, there are places for us, and I mentioned this earlier, rubrics are also an opportunity for us to provide feedback, not only to our students, but when the peer reviewer uses the rubric, they provide and are expected to provide feedback on every area. And a lot of times it's, great job, I see exactly where you met this. And, I have nothing more I could add to that, or great job, I found it here. Here's something I do in my courses you might want to think about. But there, you can come away with lots of little nuggets of wisdom from a peer review, even if you don't implement them all. But perfection is not expected when you go through that rubric. They do not expect you to get 100% to become Quality Matters certified.
Right. And I want to add on that the peer reviewers, they call them peer reviewers because they are professors. They are teaching. They are working professors from other institutions. So they're not, well, I guess they can now be an instructional designer, but they're designed to be, if you're putting up a chemistry course for peer review, there's going to be someone else who teaches a chemistry course there. There's going to be other professors looking at it from an educational perspective. So it's not like QM sends in their special evaluators. They're actually other professors who are reviewing.
And there's a course representative as well.
Yes.
That is the person who can answer questions. If you can't find something as a peer reviewer, you can ask, hey, is it here and I'm just not finding it?
Right.
And that person then can say, especially if the course representative is somebody who built the course, they may say, I know exactly where you can find that in this course, and here it is.
Right.
So.
And when something like that happens, then you can say, okay, maybe it's apparent to me as the person who has been using this course for a long time, but if it's not apparent to someone without my level of experience, maybe I need to make some adjustments. And those are things that, these are helpful recommendations from your peers. They're not punitive by any stretch. And that it's people who want to help you, and that's why they have the skin in the game anyway. And Julie asked what the QM rubric does and does not cover. So it's primarily course design, but it does talk a little bit about teaching presence. So, are you engaging the students and telling them how you're going to communicate with them? Are you introducing yourself to the students? Are you welcoming? Are you encouraging feedback and encouraging questions? Things like that. Doesn't really get into the student's experience afterward. It doesn't take into consideration any part of the student evaluation. But it's more things that the instructor can control. And Jessica wants to know how we can access the rubric. So what you will need to do is go to the Quality Matters website and basically sign up. And then, or if you would like to, just reach out to me and I can help walk you through it and get you set up, and I can get you access to the rubric online by doing a self-review of your course. And Canvas
And
template.
it costs nothing for you to sign up to QM.
That's right. It
You
is
just
not.
use your ATSU email and you set your own password, and you're in. So
And
Aaron asked, are there any Canvas templates available that could help faculty to start meeting QM standards? I don't know of any. I could tell you at other institutions if I did or not, but I'm not sure around here. Sue or Susan, do you know?
well, we use the template for all of our courses, and I think it could be modified for other schools if you would like to use it. So again, you could reach out to me or Susan or Louise. Can I do a shameless plug?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next Friday, the Missouri system is doing our virtual conference. And there it is, my shameless plug. You were planning ahead.
I was.
So we would love for any of you who have time that day to come join us. And I will put the link to the registration in the chat.
And if you miss it, feel free to reach out and we can send the link to you as well. It's not
Hey,
hard.
Rachel's already registered. Thank you.
I think I need to register for that. I don't think I've registered yet.
I wasn't going to call you out.
It's okay. I've got time.
You still have time, yes. We will be sending out the links to the actual conference on Monday and then probably again on Wednesday.
Okay. Alan, did you have your hand up?
I wanted to say, Jay, I appreciate the structure that something like QM can offer. Let me explain that on occasion in classes, I veered from the objectives to talk about something that I wanted to talk about that didn't relate to the learning goal.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have helped the student learn something, but it didn't relate to the learning goal of the course. And so I'm in week 6 and I really should be back in week 3 starting again,
Mm-hmm.
So that's Alan being happy to know about other topics and really interested in talking about them when the student isn't going to be summatively assessed on what I had to say. So
Right. And the
I like the
problem with
structure.
that is when you move on in the course, you realize how far behind you are, and then you race through everything to get to the end.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. We're almost at the top of the hour, so I got just a couple more shameless plugs to put out there. After you sit through the QM System Conference on February 28th, join Aaron and I for Tech Time, and we're going to be talking about using modules in Canvas. That's on the 28th at 1 o'clock Missouri time, 11 o'clock California, noon in Arizona. And then also in a couple weeks, say that again, Sue?
You should have just enough time for a quick lunch.
Yep, quick lunch between them. And then on March 5th, we got part 3 of this series. And we're going to be looking at the resources at ATSU that can help you with course evaluations. So we've still got a couple more minutes. If you've got a few more questions, I'll stick around and try and answer them. Otherwise, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. Look for the recording in YouTube.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you
You're
all for being
welcome.
here today.
Thank you for attending, everyone.
Good to see everyone.